Hey guys, this is Greg with GM Russell Photography. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to look at Luminar AI for the first time. Now, before we get into it, I would like to discuss briefly ethics as they relate to photography. That is, photography should be something that is representative of how things were. So, for example, if you have a composite photo where you took a landscape shot and then you later took a telephoto shot of the moon and then you edited them together in Photoshop to have a large dominating moon in the background over a beautiful horizon that you found somewhere for your landscape, you should be telling your viewers that that photo is not truly as it was. In other words, it's manipulated, right? You manipulated something that was real and added it into something to create art. It's not wrong. It's just not what you captured in camera. And I think that's important to note here because we're looking at this AI program. Now, again, my first time with it, so I'm not super familiar with what it's going to do. But if it does what I think it does, it's going to take this photo, which is authentic. This is not a composite. This was in camera, slightly edited in Lightroom and Photoshop just to, do my thing with the blacks and the whites and what have you. But, this could turn this photo into something that it really wasn't. We're going to possibly manipulate this photo to a point where I would certainly tell somebody if I posted on Instagram that this is, in fact, a manipulated photo. So let's go to these AI tabs here, because this is the part about this that I'm really curious about. So we have composition AI. And again, I'm not teaching you how to use this here. This is not a tutorial. This is a first look because I have never used this software before. So we have a ratio that gives us what appears to be, like a 4:3 or a 2:3. So if you're trying to print to a certain ratio, this could be helpful. Like let's say we want to print to a 4:3 ratio. So this is pretty similar to what we'd get with Lightroom if we took the Lightroom's ratio scaling tab, because we can just adjust this ratio to where we want it. So I don't know that I see... I don't know if I see any need for AI here in this segment because we're not doing anything that we wouldn't be doing in Lightroom. Image 3D transform. Oh, that's slow. I should note that I am processing this on a computer with 32 gigs of RAM and an i9 10 series. So if your computer's specs are not like mine, this could take you a little bit. Okay, so I can see where some AI is coming into play here. Now, obviously, this photo does not even look realistic anymore. With the way that we've shifted this perspective, this almost looks as if somebody's just kind of brought us into a really nicely looking video game, right? Like, I could imagine seeing this as a loading screen or something in any modern video game, but bringing that horizontal skew to it, while it might make it look, quote, 3D, end quote, it certainly takes that realism and brings it completely away. Oh, vertical transformation does quite a bit of that too. I mean, you can definitely tell this is no longer realistic the way that skewed that like that. Oh, okay, we're gonna go back. I don't like that at all. So yeah, apparently I guess the AI difference here between Lightroom is not so much in the ratio calculation, but in this 3D transform area. So apparently this enhanced tab that I defaulted to is also AI, and these are the defaults for what it gave us. So let's turn off everything and see what our norm is. That way we can go from there. So here's the photo. All so far that we've done to it is just turn it into a 4:3 ratio for better printing. When I'm playing around with sliders, the first thing I like to do is bring them over to the extreme just to see what it is that they do. And then I tend to dial them down quite a bit. Like that just looks terrible. And I would not share this photo anywhere like this. But we can certainly give it a little punch. Like this doesn't bring it to a point where it looks unrealistic. Now, this is very, very dark. What this has done with Sky Enhancer. Its enhancement to the sky just seems to be adding I can't quite tell if it's a gradient filter to it. It doesn't look like it's less dark as it goes down. It is definitely not adding anything in terms of darkness down to the bottom here. It looks like it's cutting it off just like right in the sky in the background there, kind of right above my horizon line, which is, I guess, what you would expect from a sky enhancer. It does seem to be relatively intelligent in that it doesn't seem to be darkening the lighthouse any more than what the lighthouse would actually have been darkened if it were this dark, which is to say the lighthouse is darker, right? Like we can see clearly that it does get darker, but I think that that is a result of potentially the AI from the darker sky bringing a darker reflection or a darker glow onto the lighthouse. It doesn't look like you just darken the lighthouse in Photoshop is what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, you could take the sky enhancer and maybe do like that to add a little bit more drama to the scene. And then I'm imagining this is our, disable tool. So we've got her before and we've got her after. And you can see that kind of makes the sun stars there pop a little bit more. And it just, I don't know, it adds a little bit more depth to the clouds that we had. It changes the color just a little bit. It doesn't really change the color, but it just makes the color look a little bit more pronounced. So I actually kind of like that right there. I don't know that I necessarily see what the AI is doing yet, but there could be a lot under the hood that I'm not understanding. So let's see what structure AI is. It would be nice if these had like a little thing you could click on them to say like specifically what they're supposed to do. So our amount is 26, and this appears to be blurring us or making us more sharp. Very sharp here, too sharp, and obviously too blurry. So let's go to 0 and kind of do some minute adjustments here. Yeah, it's definitely adding some sharpness, but I don't know that that's really the best way that I'd want to add sharpness to this. And it's just this boost feature is just really taking that that long exposure in the water and kind of ruining it. Like if you look right here on the side of the pier, you can see that there is a little artifact of a wave splash right here, which is still visible without the boost, right? It's right here. But with the boost, it really stands out and not in a good way. And this down here just makes it look a lot more turbulent than it really was. And I just don't know that I like that definition. I do like the difference it's made to the fence down here. I think it has accentuated the shadows a little bit, which is nice. And it's definitely made it more distinctive, but I don't like what it's doing to the rest of the shot. So we're not going to do that. All right, now here's what I'm really curious about is the sky AI, because I want to know, like, is this a complete sky replacement? And if so, how is it going to work? Okay, so far this doesn't seem to be doing anything. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it is a sky replacement, and I don't know why some of these are working and others aren't. So far, I've only found one. Okay, there's two. So that does not look realistic at all. I mean, don't get me wrong. The sky looks like it's not like it's a obviously fake sky, but when you couple it with, oh, you know what? I think it's just taking forever. Like this just looks like it's lagging is what the problem is. And again, I'm doing this on a pretty beefy computer, 32 gigs of RAM, a 2080 Super, and i9 109K. So if I'm having this kind of lag with this, I can't imagine what it would be like to have a less adept computer. Yeah, okay, so here we go. So, I mean, the sky is obviously real. Like, it doesn't look like it's a fake sky. It's not super pixelated or anything, but look what it's done to the sun stars. Like, you can obviously tell that this is not a legitimate photo, right? Like, this is clearly something that's been edited. And maybe a photo with sun stars like this is not a great example of a sky replacement tool. Or perhaps it is, simply for the fact that you can actually see what can go wrong with it. Like, if you look at that sky or the sun star right over here, like look at that chromatic aberration that we've got going on over in the top right. That just does not look right at all. And the discoloration over here in this one, I mean, a couple like these two over on the left look like they're the most authentic. But yeah, you can tell from the sun stars that this has been edited in some way. It's interesting, though, to see a photo that you know so well that you took years ago with a completely different background in it. Now, this... if it weren't for the sun stars and you showed me this photo, I would not probably guess that this has been enhanced in any way, but if you look at the sun stars, it's clear that there's still something going wrong with it. So their AI, in some cases, I guess, doesn't work with everything that you've got going on in your foreground, which is interesting. I wonder if there might be some sort of algorithm updates to it that'll go a little bit more towards fixing that. You can still see the chromatic aberration we talked about right here on the rightmost sun star. Same thing with the chromatic aberrations here as well. So I'm not going to go through every sky because clearly as long as it's taking to load, that'll take forever. But I do want to look at some more extreme stuff just to see what happens. So I think it'll be fun. Okay. If you showed me this photo without the sun stars, like if you took that part away, this is very clearly not real. For people that aren't familiar with shooting night sky photography like this, the Milky Way is only this pronounced if you do post-processing. And in the post-processing I've done of my night sky shots, it has never been this pronounced, nor has it ever been this large. Like, this is a very wide Milky Way center. I've never seen it like that. It's less wide and it's not usually quite as dramatic. To me, I can also see some discoloration here. So look at our background right here, right, where it's just that purplish hue that we had from the actual background. Well, you can see where, first of all, it failed to replace that, right? Like, we have an obvious gap right here. But I want to draw your attention upward. So what I'm seeing on my screen now is there's some darker magenta here, and then it goes into like a very black with a little bit of gray. It's like magenta into grayish black, into blue, into grayish blue, into the Milky Way galactic core. And then come back up here, more magenta, more black, more magenta. Then you come over here, we've got a very teal blue on the left side of our galactic core, going into magenta, going into blue. And it's just, it looks, what's a good way to put it? It doesn't look high res enough to make me think that this is an actual shot. It looks like it's been enlarged, and I believe that it has been enlarged to fit this, because you're not going to see a galactic core, in my experience at least, you're not going to see a galactic core that this is this large. So I think that this AI has enhanced this photo of the sky here to a degree where it's obviously looking fake. I mean, even if you took out this bottom part here where there's clearly no sky replacement going on, this does not look like a realistic shot at all. Similar to this, same kind of complaint that I have under the bridge here, bridge risers, whatever you call these. You can see the sky wasn't replaced. Now, I do like the way that the colors on the background look. Like, this is a pretty appealing color shift to me, going from the blue into the purple, into the pinker, into the orange tones like that. And I do like how it's bright down here and darker up here. Now, I don't know if this is just how this looks normally, or if this is bright because their AI is determined that I've got some light down here from the lights that produce the sun stars. Meaning I don't know if it would normally be this bright in another photo, but I do like how this is brighter here than it is up top. I like that gradient shift where it goes from light to dark, because that's what you'd see a little bit more in real life, going from light up into dark as you get higher up into the sky and further away from the city lights. But we're still not seeing anything that really has looked terribly authentic, because even the ones that have looked authentic have ruined the sun stars. I mean, this might be the most consistent in terms of the sun stars don't stand out too much. You can tell that they're still altered, but the chromatic aberrations don't seem as visible here. But we still run into the same problem. There's no sky replacement under these risers here. And this, I'm imagining, is also part of the Milky Way galactic core. And again, it's just too pronounced and it's too big to be really authentic. Now, I'm not sure if that's even what Luminar is going for here, like if they want authenticity. Okay, now this looks really cool. This shot would have been taken, I imagine, very close to sunset, or possibly sunrise, I guess. It looks like there is quite a glow over here, and we have a very cloudy day. So I would imagine that the sun is set off over the horizon here, and that this is the glow of the sun kind of reflecting up onto the clouds. and that some of this light in the top right here of the cloud is the sun reflecting up onto that. But we still have the same problem with our sun stars. This photo just does not look realistic. So I think I'm going to stop this and go to a different photo and see what happens. So we're going to go to a ratio of 4:3 just to change this up a little bit for printing purposes. And I want to kind of keep the original composition, which is the centered barn here. That looks good. In the last video, we touched a little bit on this for image 3D transform, where you can see that it just takes the image and makes it look obviously not real anymore. Like nobody would look at that and say, okay, that's a real barn that actually exists in that current state. So, I mean, yeah, it's cool to kind of play around with and see what it looks like in a quote 3D end quote manner, but obviously it's not actually 3D. I mean, it looks like something you might see on like a video game loading screen, right? Okay, so let's take that away, go back down here. Last time we left off, we were in the sky territory. And I should note again for people that are just joining in here, skipped ahead in the video, that this is going quite slowly and I am on a very high-end computer, which is a little disconcerting. So we're going to just come right over to the more dramatic stuff because I want to make this photo look as different as possible just to see what we can do for our own artistic interests. Okay, so right off the bat, these backgrounds are looking a lot better now that we don't have a set of stun stars over here that are ruining it. But I would like to draw your attention to this left pillar of the barn, which is somehow turned into a portion of the Milky Way itself. Look at that right there, guys. There is a sky, like a night sky in the barn. Here's another portion of night sky in the barn. And here's a very small, you might not even see it depending on how high quality this records. There's some night sky in the barn here too. Let's see if that happens with something else that's dramatic as well. Yeah, look at that, guys. Now, you could clear this up in Photoshop pretty easily, but why would you have to, right? Like, this is a $100 program. You've got so much of that sky that's on the barn here, on the barn here, on the barn here. And why would you want to do additional editing for something like this, right? Like this, I mean, the sky looks cool. I'd want a way to mask off this barn so that it doesn't keep showing all the reflection here. And I don't know, like if there's, I'm sure there's probably a way to mask it. Yeah, like right here. Okay, so mask refinement. Let's see what that does for us. So global mask refinement. Okay, so our barn is now completely transparent. Now our barn is very non-transparent, but okay, so we've refined the mask a little bit by turning global down, but now I want to draw your attention to this left spire up here. So do you see how this left spire looks like it's pretty natural right now? Let's turn this down to 20 where we were, and now we're starting to get some artifact up there. So we've removed the artifact from the barn, but now we have artifact up on the spire. So I think it's really a trade-off. This would be much easier and quicker in Photoshop to turn off. So this is probably the better way to go, but we've also got a bit of a halo around here as well. And it looks like maybe a little halo here too. So I wonder if I can just play around with this. I wonder if this will do anything. Okay, so close gap seems to help, but now we've lost a portion. Like part of that is just floating. I think that's probably about where we'd want to go. And fix details. Let's pop this all the way up and see what happens. I don't see any change from that. Okay, so let's swap over to a different background and let's play around a little bit and see if we can get something that actually looks like a super authentic background. Like this, I mean, if you showed this to me, I don't know that I would think that this was a real shot, but I don't see anything that's like jumping out at me saying that there's an AI here, other than if you look up here at the top of these spindles, it looks like they've distorted a little bit. Like you can see that the the tops are now skewed here to the left, skewed here to the right. It's almost as like they've become a small twig with a little bit of a smaller twig branching off the top of it. So you'd have to go in post in Photoshop and fix that, obviously, or I guess you could just go in Photoshop and take those off entirely, and it wouldn't really be that noticeable that they weren't, probably there in the first place. So let's just go with the sky for now, and let's see what happens with the rest of this. So augmented sky, what does this do? Aurora. Oh, so we've dropped in a fake aurora. Okay, so this is interesting. This is going to be fun to play around with, I think. And let's try a moon. Can we move it? Place object. It looks like we can enlarge it as well. Okay, this is interesting. Huh. So, I mean, I guess you got to look at this shot, right? Like, where is the sun setting here? It's over here, right? Because it's brighter here, and you can see the reflection of the sunset going into the darker clouds over here. So our sunset or our sunrise is over here. So if our sun is over here, then that means that our moon would logically have to be somewhere over here. But I don't know logically if it would have to be flipped like this to really make a lot of sense. I mean, clearly this is not a real shot. We're not like trying to purport it to be. I mean, this moon right now looks like it's an asteroid about to hit Earth almost. Let's see what the warmth slider does. Okay, so we just kind of changed the warmth to fit in with our background a little bit better. So we're not going to want it to be super cold because obviously that makes it look like it is very standing out, very much standing out, that is. I want it to be a little bit warmer, so it looks like it's actually reflecting some of that light from the sunset. So I'm going to kind of keep it over here. What does relight do? It looks like it just takes our light down or up. I like it kind of like right around there. I think that looks fine. I don't see mask refinement doing a whole lot here, but it might be just because we have it off on the side. Okay, so let's keep that there. And then let's see, can we add more? Can we augment the sky more than one time? Like, what if I do a space shuttle? Does that take away my moon? It does. Okay. So when we augment our sky, we can only do it one time, apparently, unless there's a way to add an object on top of this that I'm missing. So just for artistic purposes, it would be really cool if they could do this in such a manner where you could add multiple things to this. So I think that would be really cool just to play around with and have some fun. Okay, this is hilarious. I don't know what kind of a noise a giraffe would make. I imagine this going like merp in the background, which is probably not as funny to you guys as it is to me. Okay, so putting it here by the barn, we've got an obvious chromatic aberration going off right here on the right and down below. You can see that blue cast, which we could probably fix with our mask refinement. Or not. I mean, you could fix it in Photoshop if it's really a big deal, but I don't know. I'm guessing this is an air balloon of the hot air type. Yeah. I mean, the lighting's wrong, so it stands out. Like, it pops. Not in a good way. It looks fake, but it's cool. What's Moon 2? I think I might like this moon better. Let's do the super huge moon like you see in a lot of composites, though. The question is, how huge should we make this? Like, that's too low res, right? Like, look at that. It's clearly sticking out to us. So it's not a high res asset that they're using here. And kind of try to move it into the corner a little bit. Let's check how our warmth works with this. That's too cool over here. Way too cool. Even I'd say that's too cool. That's starting to look better. It would be nice if you could kind of transform this and skew it a little bit, skew it up in the corners so that right corner is not quite as obvious. But I mean, you could go in Photoshop and manipulate this into this corner so that it kind of hides it a little bit better. So let's see what our atmosphere does. So we got fog. I mean, if you don't add a lot of this to it, it doesn't really strike me as foggy. It just strikes me as you've added a lot of brightness. And I'm not sure the atmosphere AI is good, at least not for this photo. I don't think it's really suiting our purposes. And it seems like we are out of the AI stuff. Oh, portrait AI. Okay, so this is going to do nothing for us because we are not portrait photographers on this channel. So there's probably no point using this on the photo. Okay, I decided to record this just as a little afterthought. So I played around with this a little bit off camera, I guess you'd say, off the recording. I'm going to show you a little bit about what I did here. I took out the moon because obviously that didn't look real. I went to Enhance AI and I just added a little bit onto, not too much, just a little bit onto our accent and sky enhancer. I did not play around in the composition tab at all. I didn't play around in the structure tab at all. But I did go to sky and I played around a little bit with our horizon blending. I played around a little bit with our relight strength. I am going to see if I can do better with this mask because I've brought this sky back into my barn, which shouldn't be there. Okay. I just can't seem to get it quite right. Either I mess up these spires up top or I leave this in the barn. So, I mean, this could be user error or it could just be that their AI is not incredibly enhanced. But, I mean, this is easy right here to clean up in Photoshop. This wouldn't take very long at all. A little bit right here, too, needs to be cleaned up, but it'd be pretty easy to do. I just wish this processed faster. And again, this is on a high-end computer, so... reflection amount, I think I changed that a little bit. I did the atmospheric haze, and then I did a little bit of non-AI stuff here. I made the golden hour slider where I wanted it, just so this looked a little bit more realistic with the lighting that we have going on in the sky. And what else did I do? I didn't do anything there. Didn't do anything there. I don't even know what small details means, honestly. Like, that just looks like we added a high pass filter onto the top of it. I mean, a lot of this stuff I'm going to have to play around with off camera if I ever want to try to like teach somebody how to use this program. But yeah, I kind of played around with it a little bit. I wish this mask was better because this does a lot of good right up here and a lot of bad right down here. Like, I mean, I guess if you really wanted to be ethical about it and make it real, that this is not a real photo, you could just do this. And then whoever looks at that is going to say, okay, this is not a normal photo. I think that's what it's going to have to be. I think it's just going to have a halo there. Maybe if we leave it at 21. And then we'll have to come in, if we were to post this anywhere, we'd have to come in Photoshop and clean that up and then clean that up over there. But yeah, this is okay. So this is kind of what we're going to have for the final photo.